السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام.
الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. Okay, Bismillah. So, yesterday we talked about the people who were in Jahannam, okay? People who will be in Jahannam and they will be questioned by the gatekeepers. Did a warner not come to you? And we saw yesterday that they responded that yes, a warner, indeed, a warner came to us. Of course, a warner came to us, but we said to him that we denied him, we disbelieved in him, and we said that Allah did not send down anything. Okay, and then here it continues. Allah says again, وَقَالُوا. Okay, so again they said. So it's talking about the people of Jahannam again. So we have wa, which is and, okay, which is shows us that it's continuing the statement of the people of Jahannam. وَقَالُوا. Okay, they say. This is a past tense verb, and it's in the plural, and we know that by the waw and the alif at the end. وَقَالُوا. Okay, and they said, or they say, low. Okay, low here is if or if only. Now this is this is something that usually for the believer, when it comes to our qadr, this is something that is displeasing to say. Okay, if we say something like, "Oh, if only I'd left a bit later, then that wouldn't have happened," or "If only I had been going a little bit slower, then I wouldn't have had," using this statement, "If only I had," if only I'd stayed home, then that wouldn't have happened. So this is the word low here. Okay, if only. Now, in the case when it comes to qadr, okay, then it's displeasing for us to say it. And what is more pleasing to Allah for us to say when it comes to something to do with the qadr is qaddar Allahu wa ma sha'a fa'al. Okay, so this is this is the decree of Allah, and He does what He wills. And this is from the Sunnah for us to say when when we go through something or when something happens and we didn't like it, but we know it's from the qadr of Allah, and we know that this is from the qadr of Allah, and He will do what He wills. And this is what we are meant to say. Saying low, okay, when it comes to matters like this, is something that is very displeasing to Allah, because it shows us that we are not happy with the decree of Allah. We are not accepting that this is from His decree and from the khair that He has decreed for us. And the Prophet ﷺ said that using this low, using if only, opens up the way for shaitan. Okay, because then shaitan, he makes you question Allah's wisdom, and he makes you, he can cause you to be angry with Allah, and this is something that is very dangerous. Okay, so low, if only, but outside of matters of qadr, okay, it's okay to use it. So in general, low is permissible to use, but when it's used in the context I just mentioned, then it's not permissible. Okay, kunna. Kunna comes from kana, yakunu, okay, which means to be. Oh, kana yakunu, which is to be, okay, and it has an extra noon with a fatha here, which is na, okay. So if only, we had been. So this na is we. If only we had been, or if only we had, nasma'u, and this comes from sami'a, yasma'u, and the noon at the front shows us that it's also we, the plural. Okay, so if only we had listened. If only we had listened. Yeah, or heard. If only we had listened. And they are talking about when the messages or when the messengers came, or when the messages reached them, then if only we had listened. Okay, they had hearing, but they didn't listen. And we'll go into that in more detail when we do the tafsir. وَقَالُوا لَوْ كُنَّا نَسْمَعُ. Okay, they will say, if only we had listened. Oh, this is or. Oh, نَعْقِلُ. Now this, again, we have the noon because of the we, okay, plural. نَعْقِلُ. So this is from aqala يَعْقِلُ, which means to have intellect or to reason. Yeah. And so they're saying, if only we had listened, or if only we had used our intellect. Yeah, to use your intellect. Aql, I think it's I know in the language we speak at home, it's the same word. And I think in Urdu, maybe it's the same word. To use your intellect, okay? To use your understanding, to use your reasoning that Allah has given you. If only we had listened or used our intellect, okay? Ma, this is a negation, like it was in the previous ayah, okay? أو نعقل ما كنا, yeah, kunna again, yeah, we. So this is we would not, yeah, because we have the not here. So we would not. If only we had listened or used our intellect, we would not be fi, okay? Fi can be in or amongst. We would not be amongst ashabis sa'ir. I don't know if you remember from the first lesson, but we said the sahib is the companion, okay? When we mentioned the sahib of Surah Mulk, the one who is familiar with it, the one who is connected to it, the companion of Surah Mulk. Here, this is the plural, yeah, ashab, which is the companions. We would not be amongst the companions of as-sa'ir, okay, which we mentioned was one of the names of the fire of Jahannam, one of the gates or the levels, and it means the burning, blazing fire. So they are expressing their regret and their remorse. Okay, وَقَالُوا لَوْ كُنَّا, they will say, لَوْ كُنَّا, if only we had نَسْمَعُ, only we had listened, أو نعقل, or used our intellect, ما كنا في أصحاب السعير, we would not be amongst the أصحاب السعير, the companions of the blazing fire. And here we have إضافة, okay? The إضافة shows us the companions of the blazing fire. And this is the reason for the kasra here. Okay, so Al-Baghawi, he said that they say, had we only used our hearing, okay, with what came from the messengers, what the messengers brought us, had we only used our hearing or our intellect, okay, to understand what came from them. So this is Al-Baghawi saying that they are expressing their remorse or regret, and they are saying that had we used our hearing to hear what they were saying to us, and had we used our intellect to understand what they were coming to us with. Ibn Abbas, he said, radiallahu anhu, had we only listened with the listening of the one who hears, okay, had we only listened with the listening of the one who hears guidance, because you can hear something, okay, you can hear it with your ears, but listening is a different thing altogether. So he's saying, they are saying that had we only listened with the listening of the one who hears the guidance, okay, the one who understands, the one who contemplates and reflects on the truth, so that we would have understood it and we would have acted upon it, and then we would not be from the companions of the fire. So here, when they are saying nasma'u, okay, had we listened, it's not just the pure, just hearing it. They understand it to be, had we heard it, had we listened and understood and contemplated and reflected upon the truth, so that we would have acted upon what we would have heard, so that we wouldn't be part of the fire. This is Ibn Abbas's understanding of it. He said it's not the hearing of the one who has just a device, okay, your eardrum or your ear. It's not just the hearing of the one who has these faculties. They had their basic faculties, but they didn't use it for what it was created for. And they are also not saying that they didn't have basic intellect, okay? But they refused to use it for what Allah gave them it for. And they didn't have the intellect of someone who was looking to understand these things, someone who tries to understand these things. So they had basic intellect. It wasn't that they were insane, but they weren't using that intellect to try to understand what was coming to them. So Ibn Abbas, he's saying there are two types of hearing. There is the basic hearing, okay? And then there is the hearing which he mentioned, which is, combined with understanding and reflecting and acting upon what is understood. Imam As-Sa'di, rahimahullah, he said that the people, they are saying, had we had we used our intellect, we would not be in the blazing fire. So he's saying, so then by not listening, okay, or by not trying to understand, they negated for themselves the pathways of guidance. Okay, and the pathways of guidance are listening to what Allah sent down, okay, and what the messengers came with. So one is the listening, okay, well, that's one of the pathways of guidance. The second one is, the messages and the messengers that come to us. The third one is the intellect, okay, and that the intellect that brings benefit to its companion. You can have intellect that does not bring benefit, and you have the intellect that brings the benefit, and it brings the benefit and it helps him, okay, it helps him understand the reality of things and to refrain from and stay away from anything that has a bad outcome. And this intellect also, it will prefer good over what is evil. So they had no hearing because they were not using their hearing to understand and reflect. And they had no intellect because they were not using this intellect to then to stay away from what Allah had forbidden that was bad for them, and to increase in the good that He had made clear to them. Okay, so and this is the opposite. Imam Sa'di said that this is the opposite to those who have certainty and those who have awareness, and those people who have honesty in their religion and in their iman, and those people who their iman is strengthened by things that they hear. Okay, when they hear Qala Allahu, okay, they hear the statements of Allah, they hear the recitation of the Quran, they hear the explanation of the Quran, or Qala Rasulullah, okay, they hear the statements of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It's through hearing these that their faith is strengthened, their iman is strengthened, and these things are transmitted by hearing. Okay, we know that things are transmitted also, we can read them, but here it is the listening that is being talked about. And these messages are transmitted by hearing. So the people who have iman and they are aware, okay, they hear and they listen to what comes from Allah, okay, and in knowledge and understanding and awareness and in practical implementation. Those people who are really listening, okay, are the people who will be hearing it, listening it, understanding it, okay, because it's coupled with the aql, and then reflecting upon it, and then applying what it is that they have heard and what it is that they have understood. Okay, I was just talking to somebody the other day, and we were saying that the elder generation, they might have known less, especially the ones that come from India and Pakistan. They knew less about the religion. Knowledge is not so easily accessible as it is now. So they knew less, but they did whatever they knew. Whatever they knew, they applied it. And now we have so much knowledge available to us, but we have much less of the implementation. And Allah help us to increase in applying what He has sent down to us. Okay, so Shanqiti, rahimahullah, he said, the good sound intellect is what ties back its companion from affairs that are not good for it. Okay, and I remember my teacher saying to me that aql, the word aql, is the same word that is used for a rope that you tie around your camel. Okay, so that the camel can only explore up to a certain boundary. Okay, he's tied so that he can walk around a certain area, but he can't go outside of that area. Okay, so this aql, this what he's tied to with, is what helps him to stay within his boundaries. And in the same way, okay, a good sound intellect is what holds us back, ties us back from the affairs that are not good for us. Everything that Allah has commanded, everything that Allah has forbidden, there is khair in it only for us. Yeah, there is khair in everything that He has revealed in His Quran, and the rulings that we have been given is only for the benefit of ourselves and the ummah at large. As for the intellect that does not prevent a person from what is not appropriate, okay, this is still intellect, but this is not the intellect that is meant here, okay, in the ayah. When we say, oh, na'aqilu, this is not the intellect that is meant here. Okay, so the people here, we can see that they will express their regret. Okay, if only we had been listening, if only we had understood. Okay, and they mentioned listening, not talking. Okay, uh, because it's the listening that uh, will help you to understand and to gauge and to to help whatever is trying to reach you can reach you if you are really listening. Okay, but if you are talking, then you will not. Uh, they say that the people will love talking to somebody who is a good listener. Okay, those people who are good listeners, they are quiet when they're being spoken to. They will show that they are listening, maybe by a nod or a gesture, but they are listening and they are not talking. Okay, so then the person talking to them feels that they've really been understood. So they said, if only we had been listening. And then they said, if only we had, if only we had used our intellect, which means not wasting their time, but using their minds and paying attention. Okay, and then they said, we would not have been from the companions of the blazing fire. So this shows us, okay, to summarize, this shows us that the people will end up in the hellfire. But why? Because they didn't listen and because they did not understand. And this is what will take most people to the hellfire. Okay, and Allah protect us from that. Okay, it doesn't mean that they were deaf. It doesn't mean that they were insane. Okay, but what kind of listening is this? We mentioned in a couple of the tafsir. This is a listening that makes a person reflect and understand and focus. And as a result of all of that, he accepts. So this is a listening of acceptance, paying attention and reflection. And only if a person listens can he bring about a change in his actions. So listening is the first step. Okay. If you haven't heard, then you're not going to know. Okay. If you haven't heard, then you will not know. And if you don't know, then you will not accept and you will not do. And then the aql is mentioned. And that is, we said, is to comprehend. Okay. Is it just knowing? No, it's not just knowing. Comprehension is something that changes a person's action. Okay. It's, you really get it. When you understand something, you really get it. And that's why people say, there's never a question that is too silly. Okay. You should always ask questions if it's going to help you to understand something. You ask the question and then you listen to the answer, and this will help you, inshallah, to understand something. And those people who have aql, those are the ones who are they're trying to gain that understanding. So through your questions, as long as your intention for your questions is good, through your questions, it shows that you're trying to understand, and you will be listening to the answers in order to get the understanding that will benefit you. When a person gets it, okay, and then they realize as a result of getting it, and then through that he can change his ways. Okay, and listening it should be one of the easiest things to do. And I remember somebody saying that Allah gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we would listen more than we spoke. Okay, and in the womb, when the child is in the when the fetus is in the womb of the mother, it's the hearing, the sense of hearing that will come to that child, that will be working before the sense of seeing. Okay, or the other senses, it's the sense of hearing that comes to that child first. Okay, so when does Allah put, Allah mentions in Surah Baqarah, ختم الله على قلوبهم وعلى سمعهم وعلى أبصارهم غشاوة, that Allah put a seal upon their hearts and upon their hearing, and upon their seeing he put a covering. Okay, so when does Allah put a seal on someone's hearing? Okay, is when a person has no desire to change. When when the truth comes to them and they will not listen and they will just turn away. Okay, I know better, or this doesn't suit me. I'm not going to do that. That doesn't make sense to me. They turn away when the truth comes to them. Ibn Kathir, in Surah Al-Kahf, Allah said, in their hearing is a heaviness, that if you call them to guidance, they will never accept. Okay, there is like a covering or a heaviness over their hearing, that if you call them to guidance, they will never accept. And Allah will never put this seal over the hearing or the seeing or over the hearts, and until that person has rejected more than once. It's not just a one-time rejection. When they have rejected and they have denied and they have turned away from the reminders that have come to them. Allah said in Surah Nisa that Allah put a seal on their hearts because of their disbelief. Okay, and Ibn Abbas, he mentioned his tafsir of this ayah, خَتَمَ اللَّهُ عَلَى قُلُوبِهِمْ. He said, imagine that your heart, or your seeing, your hearing is like a hand, okay? And every time you reject, every time you turn away, every time you sin, and you neglect that sinning, okay? You neglect it by not feeling that remorse for it, by not feeling regretful, by not seeking forgiveness for it, okay? By thinking it's okay. Every time you do, then it's like one finger covers. And then you do more and more, then more and more fingers cover until it is sealed. Okay, until it is sealed, and then that's it. So why is it that Allah would deprive a person from listening or understanding? Okay, it is when he is not interested himself. Okay, when he does not put in the effort himself. There has to be some effort, some striving from that person to want to do good. Okay, to want to understand, to want to to want to be upon the truth. Those who don't like to listen, you will see that they also will tell others not to listen. Okay, the mushrikeen in the Quran, they would say, regarding the Quran, they would say, make noise and don't let others listen, so they would not listen, and they would not let other listens either. They would not let others listen either. Okay, and we can see, for example, if someone is not interested in learning something, okay, then they start talking. So they deprive other people from listening, and they deprive themselves from listening. In Surah Anfal, there is an ayah that paraphrased is, don't be like those who say that we have heard, but they don't actually listen. Okay, because most people, the majority of people have this faculty of hearing, but the majority of people are not ones who listen. So when something is said to you, when something is said to us, upon us is to pay attention, okay? Because otherwise we miss out. Yeah, if we don't pay attention, then we miss out. So listening is the first step. If a person hasn't heard, then he will not understand. If he will not understand, then his heart will not change. And if his heart does not change, then the action will not change either. So there is a hadith that I was going to mention to you. I will just mention the beginning of it, okay? Where the Prophet ﷺ was talking to one of the younger Sahaba, okay, and he said to him that be mindful of Allah, preserve Allah, and Allah will preserve you. Okay, be mindful of Allah, and Allah will preserve you. And some of the explanation of the ulama on this part of the hadith is that when you preserve your hearing, when you preserve your seeing, when you preserve your intellect, okay, and how do we do that? We preserve our seeing through what we see. If we protect our eyes from seeing that which we should not be seeing, so lowering the gaze, and this is for men and for women. Lowering the gaze is not something that is just for men, like we commonly think. Okay, lowering the gaze is for men and for women. So this is a way that we can protect our eyes. Protecting our eyes from seeing anything else that is haram. Okay, anything that will be a waste of time is not protecting the eyes. Okay, reading things that are not of benefit. Okay, reading things that are going to cause maybe doubts or problems in your religion. These things should be stayed away from, and this is something that the eyes should be protected from. How can you preserve your listening? Okay, we protect our ears from hearing anything that is something that Allah would not be pleased with. So backbiting or slandering, okay, music, and even those things that would be a waste of time for us. Okay, that doesn't mean that we can't ever take time out to relax and to, but we should make sure that any time that we are relaxing, that those things are still something that is within the permissible. Okay, something that is still halal and not, not on the boundaries of what is haram. So we have to preserve our seeing, we have to preserve our hearing, okay? We have to preserve our tongue. That is from what we say. The Prophet ﷺ said that we should speak, Man kana yu'minu billahi wal yawmil akhiri, okay? Whoever believes in Allah and in the last day, فَلْيَقُلْ خَيْرٍ أَوْ لِيَصْمُتْ, okay? Should speak good, then let him speak good, or stay silent. Okay, and this is something that, especially in this society, we find very difficult. We feel like we must fill in the silences so that it's not awkward. But we must make sure that we are trying to speak what is of benefit, okay, or we are, not to say anything. We also preserve our tongue by staying away again from the backbiting, from the slandering, from the lying, from gossiping. Okay, and backbiting is actually something that anything that you say about somebody in their absence, okay, that they would not be pleased with. So, and Aisha radiallahu anha, when it doesn't even have to be something that your tongue does. It can be a gesture, or it can be a, rolling of the eyes, or, if somebody said to me, oh, so, such and such is coming to our house today, and if I roll my eyes, indicating that I don't want her to come, this is a form of backbiting. This would be considered ghiba. And when Aisha radiallahu anha, she only gestured with her hand that one of the other wives was slightly shorter, okay, the Prophet ﷺ told her that this one action, this one form of backbiting was enough to corrupt the entire ocean. Okay, the ocean is a huge mass of water. One little drop in there would not be felt. Yeah, a whole lake probably wouldn't be felt by the ocean. But one action of backbiting, or one gesture, or one little word, okay, is enough to corrupt, or enough to poison, if you think of it that way, enough to poison an entire ocean. Okay, and this is how disgusting and how poisonous backbiting is. And worse than that is the slandering, where you are saying things that are not even true. Because backbiting is things that, are true, but you don't say it about the person. And it can even be something that is good about them that they wouldn't like you to say. They wouldn't like you to say to anybody, even if it is something that is good. So anything that they would not like you to say in their absence. So preserving our hearing and our seeing, and preserving our faculties, then Allah will preserve us. Okay, and this is why you see so many of the ulama, subhanallah, you don't see the ulama having dementia, or you don't see them losing those faculties, because they are using them so much, and they are preserving them. They're preserving them with the knowledge of Allah and the knowledge of His religion, and they are preserving it through teaching and constantly learning still themselves, and always going over what they are learning. And part of preserving that, okay, is our limbs. Okay, if we preserve Allah, we preserve what we are taught, we then put into action. So we use our limbs, and we use our heart, and we use those things that He's given us for His pleasure, and to do the good that He has commanded us to do, and to stay away from the bad that He has told us to stay away from. And I'll stop there, inshallah. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام.